Welcome to this September Think-a-Thon. I'd like to give maybe 1 more minute for everyone to join, and then Debbie, Dr. Duran, whenever you're ready, we can start.
Well, look, this first half hour, I want to make sure that people can get into the system. I know you registered several, but there might be some that it doesn't work. So I just want to test that before we get started.
Sure, of course, we can do that. I was planning to do that later, but it's fine.
Well, the official start time is supposed to be 2:30. So if we can just test to make sure they can get in.
Of course, of course.
Not to start anything, but just to get them, see who's not approved yet.
Perfect. Yes, we can do that. Then I will share my screen then.
Yeah.
Perfect. I just need 1 minute.
And what we've been trying to do for those of you who have stayed with us for this last 9 or 10 months, thank you. I hope it's been helpful along the way. Today's session is really a summary of all of the tutorials that we've done in the last 6-9 months, kind of to go over it and to highlight. And most of all, to make sure that we have this recording on our website so that you can come back to it and use it anytime you want to sort of like catch up, or if in case you missed some of the sessions over the last 6-9 months. After we do this little summary, the next 3 sessions of the Think-a-Thon is really going to focus on how do we start getting ready to do big data analyses. So we'll cover topics like common data elements and aggregating data sets and understanding the importance of when we combine data sets that there's shared meaning. And then the next session will be on what is fair data, what is transparency data, what is AI ready data. And because this is how we're going to start the beginning of the year when we start doing research projects. So we want to give you all the tools that you need to start being successful using big data for AI and cloud computing. And then the last session in December will be a session on sort of going over ways that we calculate, develop algorithms, use different methodological tools, that kind of stuff. So hopefully this will give you sort of an overview as we start doing actual research next year using the system. And our whole goal has been this year to prep us for that next step. Are you ready, Luca?
Yes, of course.
So we tried to do something a little bit different. For those of you guys who've been along with us, you know that it's been very difficult to get everybody registered in time to actually use the system during the Think-a-Thon. So we tried a different approach where we will register you ourselves, or Luca will register you beforehand. Of course, I just want to make it really clear, just because we register you to use the system doesn't mean that you're going to be billed or charged anything. That's up to you to set up that account if you want that, but you already now have access. You can also request that we totally remove you from the system, which we will welcomely do without question. And of course, you can just let it stay there and never use it. So there's lots of options for you. But what we need to do is make sure that everybody on the call now is registered if you want to be registered. So Luca's going to walk you through that initial registration part of it, and then we're going to go to the presentation. Okay.
Perfect. So I'm going to share my screen now. And we're going to go over account setup. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so this is what Debbie was saying. So we did register you for ScHARE, and we're going to add you to a free temporary building project just for today that will allow you to run all the event materials with us, and then even later today on your own if you choose to do that. And again, you can choose not to use your account. So if you prefer to be removed at any time, you just have to email us at share@mail.nih.gov, as you can see on screen. And if you want to access work in progress after today, you will need to set up your own billing, and we'll show you how you can do that and copy your work to that to be able to continue. So in this part of the event, we want to make sure that everyone has provided their Gmail address and has been registered. So when you register for the event, you provided your Gmail address, and I have added all of you to ScHARE and to the free bidding project that I was mentioning before. So the goal of this part is to see if any one of you still has to be registered, and to create and set up a Terra account, so to help you do that second step. So if there is anyone here who has not provided their Gmail address, you're still in time to do that. So you can send me a direct message, or you can paste it in the chat, and I will be able to add you while Dr. Duran is going to do the introduction. And so please feel free to do that. Use the chat to provide me with that Gmail address if you haven't done so.
Let's start with people trying to log in first, because if they can log in, then all is good. If they can't log in, then we have to problem solve, and it might be to set up an account. So let's have them all just get into the ScHARE platform.
Perfect. And I have also added 2 slides here. The slides will be distributed, and these slides go over how you can register for ScHARE and how you can create a Terra account, outside of this event for future reference. So I would invite everyone to please paste the address below in your browser. And I would ask Elizabeth to please paste this in the chat so that everyone has access to it. So
the easiest thing to do is just go to the chat and click on the link, and it should take you to this page. You don't have to try to type it in, just click on it. And just remember, everybody's clicking on it at the same time. So you know how IT works. It could be a little crowded. So if it doesn't work the first time, just give it a second. I'll do like I did my granddaughter. Honey, sometimes you have to wait your turn. And so you'll eventually get into this, but because there's so many people doing it, it might have a little delay.
Right. And actually, you will be able to see this screen only if you have already created a Terra account, maybe from previous times or on your own, and if you are logged in. So this is what you would see.
And this is what we want you to see.
Exactly. But if you don't see that now, we're going to bring you to see that in a moment. Because if you have not logged in or you have not created a Terra account yet, this is the page that you will see. It's the main Terra page. Terra is actually the platform behind ScHARE.
So what Luke is saying here is if you saw the first page, then just sit there, don't touch your board, don't touch your keys, just sit there and go get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, because for those who see the other screen, we have to get them logged in. So if you see this screen, you're good to go. Okay?
Well,
Go
if you see this
If
one,
you see this one, then you need to stay and listen to Luca log you in. Okay? Go ahead, Luca.
perfect. So if you see this screen, I would ask you to press the login button, on the bottom left of the page. And once you do that, you will be brought to a login page. So here you would have to sign in to Terra, and you can do that using the Gmail address that he provided us with. So when you get to this page, please click on Sign in with Google. And I would go over these steps again one more time, but the next screen you should see is this one, where you have to provide your Gmail address. So the same address that you gave us. So please provide that. And then click on Next. Once you do that, you will be asked to provide your password, which of course is the password associated with that Google account. And then you would have to click on Next. And once you do that, if you're a new Terra user, you will be brought to this page. It's a new user registration page, and you'll be asked to provide your first name, last name, and contact email. The contact email can actually be the same Gmail address or a different one if you prefer. And then you will have to click on Register. So when you do that, the next page is going to ask you to accept the Terra Terms of Service. So you can scroll down this page and click on Accept. And I'm going to repeat these steps if needed in a moment, but I'm pretty sure that most of you are already registered by this time. And so after clicking Accept, you should see this welcome page. And if you paste the address that was provided in the chat in your browser again, you should now be brought to our ScHARE workspace on Terra, which will look like this. So does everybody see this page? If not, let us know, and I will be happy to repeat the steps again or help you if there are any issues. Maybe you can let us know in the chat. Okay, thank you, Jessica.
If you don't have it and you have not got to that place, the best thing to do is put into the chat just to Luca. You don't have to give it to everybody on the call. So the way that you do that is in the chat where it says everyone, there's a little caret that points down. If you click on that, you'll see Luca's name as you scroll down alphabetically. You click on Luca Calzoni, and then you send him your Gmail email, and he will register you. It's going to take him a little bit of time, and it takes a little bit of time to register. So by the time I get through doing the introduction, he'll probably have it all registered. So if you couldn't get to that place, just follow those instructions. Email your Gmail account to Luca.
Perfect.
Okay.
So I think there are a couple of you who need help with that. So Debbie, whenever you're ready, you could start with the introduction, and then I will help everyone.
Okay. So I'm going to take the screen then.
Okay.
Actually, before we do that, Mark or Kevin, you want to put in the Slido link in the chat? For those of you who are new, we use Slido as a comment board, like a whiteboard. So sometimes we do poll questions, sometimes we ask questions, and we ask you to answer them using Slido. So right now, Elizabeth put in the chat the Slido link, and is Kevin or Mark?
It's Mark today.
Okay, Mark. Mark's going to explain to you what to do with the Slido. So, Mark.
Hello. So go ahead and click the link that Elizabeth put in the chat, or use the Slido app with the code review. I will share screen so everyone can take a look. All right, so our first survey is the experience poll. So once you're either on the Slido website or you have the Slido app open, you will see questions. You can begin responding to them to let us know a little bit about your experience with Python and Terra and so forth. And then I'll begin showing the results on the screen, but you should also see them on your own screen on the website after you respond. Actually, that's not true for the survey. That's only true for the other poll questions. So for the survey, you'll have to wait to see it on the screen. So go ahead and access Slido now and please begin responding.
All you have to do is get there is just to click on the link that's in the chat. And there's usually a passcode. Is the passcode there?
The code is review, and you can also use this QR code that you see on your screen as well. Any of those ways will take you to the same place. If you go to slido.com or the app, then you would use code review. But if you use the link from the chat, then it takes you directly to the questions. You don't have to use any code.
So these polls that we do actually really help us make decisions about what to do. So I really encourage you all to please fill these out for us, because they help everyone. So Mark, do you want to show some results?
This is experience with Python, experience with R, with cloud computing, and with Terra.
So I'm always pleased when I see these numbers, because our series, our Think-a-Thons, are designed exactly for the people who are on this call. People that have little to no experience with Python, R, cloud computing, Terra, because the whole intention of our ScHARe program is to increase participation of people from health disparity populations, because we are very underrepresented in data science, and we have to do things to help upskill us, because this is the wave of the future. both in clinical care as well as in almost every aspect of the world these days, from business to healthcare to payer insurance. I mean, everything. So we have to be able to use, not only use it, but to review and evaluate it when it's presented to us. So we're glad you're here today. So those two, keep the Slido link open because there will be other things that we asked during the presentation. And and then of course stay linked on to ScHARE. Even though some of you have done this all the time with us, I always like to give a quick overview of what ScHARE is because we always have brand new users. And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So I'm going to share the screen. Mark, can you see the screen?
Yes, I see it.
Okay.
You may want to go to display settings and swap, because right now we see the presenter view and not the full screen slide.
There we go. Is that better?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So those of you who've already seen this review, you can check your emails. So ScHARE was created actually towards the beginning of this year. It was prototyped last year. It stands for the Science Collaborative for Health Disparities and Artificial Intelligence Bias Reduction. It's actually a collaboration of many efforts coming together. One of the reasons that it stands out among all the other platforms at NIH is because both the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities and the National Institute of Nursing Research, we are two of the smallest institutes. So we pooled together to create this, as opposed to some of the big institutes who can do this all on their own. So NIH OD, Office of the Director, is also very invested in increasing representation of underserved populations. So the Office of Data Science Strategy is very much a partner in this effort. Luca and I are the originators of ScHARE, but there are many people involved to thank. And we have working groups that are working on common data elements, communication teams, contract support. Broad Institute helps us with Terra. And of course, we have the leadership that is backing us up and keeping the funding going for these kinds of things. So today, we're going to talk about ScHARE in its overview. This is sort of a summary of all the things that we've done in the last 6 to 9 months, but this will do it so that you have a nice overview. And if you've missed any of the sessions, this is really the place where you can go and get details of how to do everything rather than looking at 6 to 9 different videos. So we did this one already, so I'm going to move. We did this poll already, so you did this on Slido. So I'll start the overview. ScHARE was really created because all the other platforms at NIH deal with basic science. NIH didn't have anything that focused on social determinants of health, population science, behavioral kinds of data. So we created ScHARE to fill that gap. As I've said before, we really are targeting women and underrepresented populations. But in doing that, we're also trying to help health disparities, health outcomes, healthcare delivery research create a paradigm shift in thinking so that we know that we can be a part of this movement. And with this, we actually uncover more details than we ever could see before. So for instance, even in genome, for instance, they had like, let's say 750 diseases. When they used algorithms and big data, they ended up with double that amount and genetic variation, because sometimes the system and this amount of data and the way AI works, you actually get better information. So for instance, for us, if we're looking at social determinants of health, we can look at multiple social determinants of health and really understand what is the interaction and the mechanisms that lead to a particular health disparity, rather than trying to do just a single study on a laptop using one or two variables. So this opens up many opportunities for us to create a paradigm shift in health disparities research as well. And of course, our focus is always on the bias and ethical inquiry, because as we hear everywhere, there's always likely to be biases in the algorithms that are created. The biases are not bad, and it doesn't mean algorithms are bad or that AI is bad. It's just we have to learn to identify it before it creates harm and fix it. Because the system, the AI approach really does save time and money and gives us more knowledge. We just need to be able to use it in a way that we don't create harm. And that is why it's so important for you all to become involved. ScHARE has several components. One of them is a plethora of data sets. We now have 243 plus data sets. All of those data sets are population science, including the social determinants of health, different social science data, environmental data, behavioral data, etc. Also in ScHARE is a data repository. As you know, for if you are a researcher at NIH or anywhere, you have to share data. By the next few months, we will have this repository working so that you can upload your data into the repository. This is also a very unique approach, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. There's also on the ScHARE platform, there's computational abilities and tools that you can use. Many are free of charge, and some of the tools are notebooks that Luca will definitely go over in his presentation that actually writes code for you or shows you all the data sets in here. So we've done everything we can to try to make this a useful and easy to use platform for people who've never done cloud computing before. Just so you know, it is a Google platform. In other words, we use Google in the background. In case you don't know what the other ones are, there are AWS, which is Amazon, Azure, which is oftentimes used more in educational institutions, and Google. We also use the NIMHD has a webpage link, so you can go to our webpage and link right into ScHARE. And we use GitHub to store lots of the information that would also be very useful for you. It is what we call a data ecosystem. We have cloud, Google Cloud public data sets. These come with Google. They're often referred to as federated. So you might hear that term tossed around several times. Federated simply means that they're national data sets that are public, and the PII has been removed from them, and that's why they're so public. An example of that is the American Community Survey. Google hosts some of those data sets on their platform, but we also need other data sets that are national data sets that are not hosted by Google. So ScHARE hosts the data sets for your convenience so that we have everything in a centralized location. An example of a ScHARE-hosted national data set, which is also federated, is BRFAS. So it's not a matter of whether it has PII or not, it's just who pays for it to be on the cloud. And the last thing, and this is the last phase of our development, is that we also will host project data that is funded by NIH. It can be from any institute. It doesn't have to just be from NIH, NIMHD, or NINR. The data is put, if you look on the gray section, the actual little green part is a snapshot from the platform. The data is organized under 5 categories of the CDC social determinants of health, which is economic stability, education access quality, healthcare access quality, and neighborhood built environment, social and community context. In addition to those 5 categories, we also add health behaviors and some disease and conditions. Some of the ScHARE-hosted public data sets are American Community Survey, US Census, Social Vulnerability Index. These are just some examples. Of course, we have many computational tools as well. Many of the notebooks have Python and R code already written out for you. So all you have to do is cut and paste it. And we're working on getting more and more of those kind of resources in. So even if you're a novice Python user or you're just starting to use Python, you can cut and paste code and still run analyses. Also, we're working this year to make sure that SAS, which is a statistical program, is also included on the platform. Towards the middle end of next year, we're going to be really focusing on bias mitigation tools and strategies. And it's going to help us to identify algorithms and data sets before they actually create harm. We're entering this phase now. This is sort of our second phase. So we've started that now this week. In this phase, we're using core common data elements. And the reason we use core common data elements, which we will also talk about in October, the value of them, what they are, and how to use them in studies. And this will highlight what we're presenting right here, because when you use core common data elements, which means that we collect the same information from 2 different projects, it allows us to be able to aggregate those projects much easier than the kind of data munging, data wrangling that it takes after the fact. So this is going to create a more efficient and more effective way to actually create large data sets. These data sets are also being linked to some of the federated national data sets like ACS and BRFAS, which allows you to take your individual project data and link it to federated national data sets so that you can get a better understanding. And because we all use the same interface, which is Terra, which many of the things that Luca is going to cover today is really about how to use Terra. If you learn to use Terra on the ScHARE platform, you can use Terra on all of us, Anvil, and Biodata Catalyst, because we all use the same platform and they all function in the same way. Not only does that make it easier for for you to become a user of multiple systems, it also allows for us to map across cloud platforms. So we're working on developing that mapping across, like, let's say, ScHARE and Biodata Catalyst. So you can look at the social determinants, health, population data, along with our biomedical data that is in Biodata Catalyst. If you are interested in staying up to date on our new advances and new types of things that are coming up, this is the link to the NIMHD webpage for ScHARE. If you type in ScHARE NIMHD, you'll come to the webpage and you click on Stay Updated, and there you'll see funding notices as well as news and alerts. And when you get your email in, then you are part of the system where we keep people updated. You're joining our listserv. Another component that we thought was very necessary as part of the ScHARE program is the Think-a-Thons. And this is what you are participating in today. We do a monthly Think-a-Thon. Next year, they're so popular, we are thinking that we're going to probably do 2 a month. One, as you know, some of our Think-a-Thons are instructional, like the one today. And we're going to start the research ones as well next year. And so in order to make sure that new users can join, we're probably going to keep the instructional ones going, but then add the collaborative research ones. And we really encourage you all to participate in these research teams. And in these research teams, we'll actually use the ScHARE datasets to conduct research. We try to keep these Think-a-Thons interactive so that you also have a chance to do hands-on. So in the Think-a-Thons, we hope that you stay with us to the next 3, which is really going to help you prepare the data for the research part. So stay tuned. So I'm going to turn it back over to Mark to do the interest poll. So if you can, please go to Slido again. And I'm sure Rebecca will put it in the chat.
All right, so we're going to go to the next question here in Slido. This is our interest poll. So please go ahead and click the link in the chat or go to slido.com, enter code review. You can also use the Slido app with code review, or you can scan the QR code on your screen there. Any of those methods will take you to the same question, and then please just begin responding and the answers will appear here on screen.
And I also see that Elizabeth put the ScHARE webpage in the portal, in the chat. So you can link on that and mark it as your faves so you can always keep coming back. Thank you for filling these out, because it helps us to know which direction to go with the research. So this responding to these polls really helps in every possible way for us to make this useful and usable for you. Again, so I can see that those of you on the call obviously are wanting to do the same things that we have in mind. And that is basically to leverage AI tools and cloud computing to do research leveraging big data. That and increasing participation of underrepresented populations are our two passions. So you're in the right place. I'm going to turn this over to Luca now. I'm going to stop. Luca,
Sure.
do we have everyone in?
Yes, I think so. I was
Okay.
looking one of our attendees, but I think he's good. He will let me know.
At this point, if you can't get in or you're not in, we apologize. But you don't really have to be in for you to gain insight into what we're doing today. So just listen and Luca.
Of course. So, okay, happy to start the tutorials. Let me share my screen again.
We already did the account setup, so.
Yes. So, and everybody should be fine now.
Yeah.
So everybody confirmed that they are fine. And I'm going to show you many things today. So how to create workspaces, how to work with notebooks, how to upload data to your workspace, and how to access and plot data from every category of data sets that we host.
I just want to make a little plug, Luca, excuse me. For those of you who may later need to know how to set up an account, or that information is on the slide set that will get posted. So it's all there. We just skipped that section to go to where we left off. So just know it's there. And it will be posted usually within 2 weeks after the presentation, usually faster. Okay, Luca?
Perfect. So let me start from here, from workspaces. So for those of you who are new, what is a workspace? So workspaces are kind of the building blocks of Terra. So you're assigned a space on Terra where you and your collaborators can access your data, organize the data in tools, visualize the data, and run analysis together. So you can use workspaces to do many things, once you create one. So you can use them to link to data in the cloud for analysis, or to combine data from different sources, or to keep your data organized, or to visualize it, to analyze it, and to find even workflows, which are like bulk analysis tools that allow you to save time by automating some operations that you always do with data. And it also allows you to share them with your collaborators so that everyone can easily replicate your steps. And you can share your results, of course. And all of this, so all this collaboration happens while you maintain control of your resources and you decide who can see your data and who can access it, who can share it. So we're going to go over this in a moment. So I'm going to show you how you can create a workspace, first of all. And the next step will be how to share a workspace with your collaborators. And we're going to see how you can also assign permissions to decide who can access your data and who cannot. And the last thing I'm going to show you is how to copy an existing workspace. Because if you find an interesting workspace, like ours, for example, and you like the resources that are contained in that workspace, if you have permission to do so, you can actually copy the workspace and keep that copy for yourself and work on it over time. So the first thing I want to show you is how to create a workspace. And I'm only asking you to watch our demonstration right now, and you can always replicate my steps, the steps that I will show you later on, because as I said, you have access to that free building project. So you'll be able to do every step again. So I would like to open my browser and show you our workspace. So a workspace is composed of several tabs, several sections, which you can see on top. So there's a dashboard, there's a data section, an analysis section, and then also workflows and job history section. We want to go over those. In the dashboard, you can have information about your project, for example. So we put here information on ScHARe, something on the mission, the vision, and, how to get started, and some frequently answered questions at the end. But you can use this space to put information on your
Luca,
project.
can you
Yes.
please do that a little bit slower?
Oh, yeah, of course. I only had so much content to cover that I was trying to.
Um,
Yeah, of course, I'll try
And
to.
also, I see people are using the chat, but if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and I'm trying to answer them as Luca goes through the different parts. Either I or Saida, Mark, or Elizabeth will answer them. Okay.
Perfect. So we went over what the dashboard is. And the next section I want to point your attention to is the data section. So here is where you can actually upload any data that is currently stored on your computer and you want to work with. And you can also access data that is already in your workspace from here.
I'm sorry, Luca, I don't mean to interrupt again, but for those of you on the call, you should already be logged in. So if you want to follow along with Luca, you should see this dashboard at the top of your page. And when he clicks on data, you should see the same sort of dashboard that he sees. And it's not that you have to do anything in it, but if you follow along, it just helps a little bit with kinesthetic learning. But you don't have to.
Yes, we will give you an overview today of what's possible and show you everything so that you can do it on your own later. So as I was saying, from the data section, you can actually upload data or access data that is already in your workspace. And I will go over this when we will talk about the data sets that we host, but you can see that there are links here for you to access the data sets that are in this specific workspace. The next section is the analysis section. So this section is where you would go to actually create your analysis and work with your data. So as you can see here, there are several notebooks, they're called. I'll talk about those in the next section in a minute. But these are the instruments that allow you to actually run computations and also add explanations and whatever is needed really to collaborate with your collaborators or with your students if you are an educator, because I know that there are some educators among us. Okay, perfect. So that was an introduction, a quick introduction of workspaces. And the first thing we're going to see is how you can create one. So if you click on the menu here, the three stripes menu, it's called the hamburger menu, I guess, here at the top of the page, you access this section. And if you click on workspaces, you will be brought to this page, which lists all the workspaces that are associated with your account, because you can have many, of course. I actually have our main one here, ScHARe, and I have one which I created on purpose for this Think-a-Thon. And similarly, you can do the same. You can, if you have multiple projects, you can keep them separate. So to create a new workspace for, say, a new research project, you have to click on the plus button next to the workspaces. And when you do that, and again, just watch me doing it, don't worry about following me. You're asked to create a new workspace. So to choose a workspace name, which in our case is going to be test, something like that. And to choose a building project.
Excuse me, Luca. I'm going to recommend that as much as possible, you try to just watch. It's going to be presented later. And you'll have access to it so you can go in and play around a little bit, but it might be because if you've never done this before, it might be really good just to sort of observe what is happening. And even if you click on like create a new workspace, don't spend your time doing it now because you're going to lose all the other instruction. Okay.
Actually, we had the previous Think-a-Thons dedicated to each of the things that I'm going to go over now. So this is supposed to be a quick recap of everything to give you like the full picture. So choose a workspace name, then select the building project. So when I click on building project, you can see that I see all the building projects that I have associated to my Terra account. And you should all have access to this one, ScHARE tab, which is the free building project that I was mentioning before. So once you replicate my steps later today, you'll be able to see the ScHARE tab building project and to select it. Then don't worry about bucket location. Enter a description if you want or not. And the last thing you have to do, don't worry about authorization domains. It's an advanced setting. It's a security setting. So you're actually ready to create the workspace by pressing the Create Workspace button. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to show you that it's going to take a little while. But then the new workspace should appear among your workspaces. Yeah, actually, I had already used that name. Let me change it. Okay. It's going to take a while. So while we wait, I would go back to my presentation and tell you how you can actually share a workspace with your collaborators once it's created. So to tell you that, I'll give you an example. So let's say there's a research project that you want to work on with your collaborators, or if you are an educator with a group of students. So you want your students or your collaborators to be able to access your data, perform computations, and actually work with you to write those analyses and edit them. So the ones I showed you in the analysis section, the interactive notebooks. So to be able to do that, the first step is creating a group, listing all of your collaborators for that project. And then the next step is going to be to share the workspace with them and to give them access to actually perform the computations. Perfect. So I went back to my browser now, and you can see that the workspace is now ready. So same sections as before, dashboard, data, analysis, but you can see that, of course, everything is empty now because it's a new workspace. So if I now want to share this with my collaborators, what I have to do is to go to the same button as before, only this time I'm going to click on my username here, and I'm going to go to groups to create that group of users I want to share my project with, my workspace with. So once I click on that, I get to this group management page where I can easily create a new group by clicking on this button here. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm asked to enter a unique name for this group of collaborators, and I will enter something like students, for example, students 1, something like that, assuming that there are multiple groups of collaborators. Then I'm clicking on create group now. Here it is. So what I need to do now is to access this group and add every collaborator individually. And I want to point your attention to the fact that this group of collaborators is associated with this group email address, which you can see here. The name of the group at firecloud.org. I'm going to copy this. It's going to be helpful later. I will show you. Now, I can access this group of collaborators. My email address is going to be in there, and I can add as many users as I want. So I'm going to use, like, an example email address, like And the next thing, of course, is to click on Add User. Perfect. And I'm going to repeat this step for as many users as I need. I'm not going to do that, but no, you can. And if I want to create a second group, which might have different privileges, different permissions to access your data or not. So let's say you want one group of collaborators to only be able to see your analysis, but not to modify them.
Let's set October 6th, 7 p.m.
Okay. So you can always create a second group, repeating the same process, and just assign different permissions to the two groups, as I will show you right now. So as I said, now that we have a group of collaborators, the next step is to share our workspace with that group. So you remember that I told you this email address, this group email address was going to be helpful. So I'm going to use this email address to identify the entire group of collaborators while I assign permissions to them. So I'm going to click on the usual menu, and what I need now is to access the workspaces section, because I'm looking for my workspace that I just created in order to be able to share it with my collaborators. I'm looking for it. We have many. Okay, perfect. Here it is. I'm going to list them alphabetically so that it's easier to find it. Okay, perfect. Here it is. You can see it. I'm highlighting it on screen. Right. So the next thing I want to do is to click on this button here, the three dots button, and click on Share to share this workspace with my collaborators. So I'm going to add that group email that I showed you before, which identifies the entire group of collaborators, as a quick shortcut, as a quick way to add everyone who is listed within that group to this workspace. So I'm going to paste the email address that I had copied here in the user email field, and I'm going to click on Add. So when I do that, you can see that I'm able to select which kind of access I want to give to that group. So I'm able to select if I want them to be readers on the project, or writers, or owners. So the difference being that, of course, reader, they can just read your data, but not modify it. Writer, they can modify it. And owner, they are the owner of the data, so they can actually delete everything if they wish so. And you can also select if you want them to be able to share your workspace with others, and if you want them to be able to run computations. And I'm going to click on Save next. Perfect. Then we created a workspace. We saw how you can share it with your collaborators. The last thing I want to show you is how you can copy a workspace. Now, this is an empty one. It's not interesting, of course, but you can do the same with our workspace, for example, with all the data and resources that we make available. Actually, let me do that. I'm going to show you in case you're interested in doing this later. So to copy a workspace and have a copy of it that you can always access, you just have to go through the same menu that we just used. So the three dots menu at the end of the line of the workspace you're interested in copying. And you click on it. And this time you select Clone. Clone is just another word for copy. So you're going to create a copy of the workspace, and you're going to be able to access it whenever needed. So when you click on that, you see that you're asked to select the workspace name, right? So for the copy you are creating. Okay. And then a building project. So same as before, you can use the ScHARE temp project. And you don't have to worry about the bucket location or the description or the authorization domain. So you're just ready to select clone workspace at the end of the page and of the window. So click on clone workspace and you're done. And it's going to take a while because, of course, we have a lot of data and a lot of resources. So in the meantime, I will go back to my presentation. But what will happen is that when you go back to the workspaces list, you're going to see your copy, similar to what happened before when I created a new one. Perfect. So we are done with workspaces. And the next thing would be how to create.
Before you move on,
oh yeah, of course.
look at, do we have any, there was no questions in the chat. Is there any questions that people have that are unclear about what a workspace is? Okay, good. I look forward to you all creating your own workspaces then.
Question?
Keep in mind that these
Question?
workspaces are very secure. And
Question?
just a minute, please.
Okay, Deb.
Please remember that these workspaces are very secure. Once you set up a workspace, nobody can get inside of it unless you give them permission. Not even Luca and me. We can't get in. It's your workspace. The one question is, what is the purpose of cloning a workspace? I'll give you my answer and then Luca can throw in anything I mess up. The purpose of cloning is because you may want to already use what somebody else is using, you know, like ours, and you can just clone it easily and not have to reinvent the wheel. Luca?
No, that's perfect. And you can decide whether you want others to be able to clone your workspace or not. You can decide to keep it for yourself.
That's a very good feature for those of you who want to use this as a teaching tool, and your students can clone. So, Shoma,
Yes, I have my question in the chat.
You can create as many workspaces as you want.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. So there aren't any more questions that would go.
That's the joy of working in the cloud is, even there is finite, but it's pretty wide. Okay.
Perfect. So
any other questions? We'll move on. Luca?
Great. Perfect. Okay, so I want to show you.
Mark has a question. What about the users? I'm not understanding your question, Mark. You want to just ask it?
Yes, good afternoon. So when you clone the workspace, are the user also copied as well?
Oh, no, it's actually a new copy, like in.
Sorry, the users are not copied. Okay.
Yeah, you have to reassign users. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not an exact clone of all the workspace with the users, correct?
The infrastructure is the clone.
Yeah, but the content of the workspace?
The content of the workspace is the
But
clone,
not the users.
but not the users, because you may not want them to be there, right?
Yeah, but we need to know. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, Luca, go on.
And then the next step will be to talk about notebooks, which you already saw in the analysis section, because notebooks are tools that you can use to actually run the analysis. And they're called actually Jupyter notebooks. And they contain two things: documentation that makes it easier for you to explain your analysis and also share and reproduce your analysis with collaborators, and actual code cells where you write the code that actually runs the analysis. And you can use Python or R as programming or scripting languages to run those analysis. I will show everything in a minute. And since programming is involved, you should know that even if you're not familiar with programming, it's actually pretty easy to understand and reuse the code that is already in our notebooks and to modify it, to accommodate your goals. And we will also point you to a series of resources that you can use to become more familiar with programming. And it might take a little time, but it's going to be easy. Right, Debbie, you did the same, right? You always share that.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. So a notebook, by the way, can be a great instructional tool if, I'm saying this for the educators among us. So if you're working with students, it's actually perfect because you can write your explanations, your formulas, and everything. And then you can also run the code and create something that is really helpful for your students. So they are, a major part of the data science workflow right now. They make your work more transparent, understandable, repeatable, and they make it easier to communicate and share your work. So there's no reason not to use them. So here's a list of notebooks that we have in our workspace. And I will show you how you can access them online, of course, but there's a list here, and you can see that we have notebooks providing instructions. And so, for example, we have one listing all the data sets available on ScHARe. We have others teaching you how to actually set up the environment, right? So to have R and Python work within your notebooks. And then finally, we have some showing you how to access, plot, and save data from the different categories of data sets that we host. So those notebooks are going to be key for you to learn how to use the platform, and they contain really detailed step-by-step instruction that you can follow.
Excuse me, Luca. So one of the ways to kind of look at notebooks is they're like a resource. So some of them you have code that you can cut and paste. Some are informational, like Luca went over different types, but think of them like a library of resources. It's like your how-tos.
Right. And I was mentioning that you can use Python or R. So why Python? Well, Python is a computer programming language, which is widely used in data science to manipulate and analyze data, and so much more. There are many data science libraries which are really powerful, and you can see some of them listed here. I will only cite pandas, for example, which is used for manipulating tables, and NumPy, right, for mathematical functions. There are so many, and they are well documented online, so you can easily learn new functions and new features. And at the same time, you are also free to use R. And of course, you all know that R is like a scripting language for statistical computing and graphics. And users can also create packages to augment its functions. So in that way, packages are really similar to libraries for Python. And it is supported by Terra as well. And the examples that we will give you today are based on Python, just because it's so powerful, and because almost 70% of machine learning developers and data scientists actually use Python versus about 24-25% of them using R. And you can learn it, so it can take anywhere from 2 to 5 months, but it's really easy to write your first short program even in minutes. And it's perfect for those of you who have no experience. Even no experience at all, because it has a really simple syntax. It's very accessible to beginners. And so it's really, really easy to learn, even taking advantage of the resources that are available online. Most of them are free, and all that you can see here are actually links. So you can click on them, and I'll give you a few examples. So
just a minute, Luca. And for those of you guys who are interested in taking Python, I would really recommend the last 2 months, we, as part of the ScHARe Think-a-Thons, we did sort of a precursor course to Python. In other words, we had a guest speaker to talk about, the terminologies that are used, things like strings, etc. I would recommend that you go on our webpage and really look at that, those videos before you start taking the course, if you've never done any kind of coding before, because that will really help you to start to take the course.
That was a good reminder. Thank you, Debbie. And you can see that there are so many resources, like 30 plus tutorials just on this page, and code camps, even for beginners, and even Harvard offers a free Python course, and Coursera, of course, so the online learning platforms, and Learn Python. I mean, there are so many. And we also recommend, if you're new to Terra, to explore the following resources they're actually posted on our website, the NIH website, and you can also find them here because the slides will be distributed. So these will help you, there are video guides or overview articles or quick start tutorials that will teach you how to use Terra. So we really recommend that you do that. Perfect. So before we go to datasets, I want to show you how you can actually
I just want to, excuse me again, I just put in the chat the link to the videos, the past videos that we've done through the past Think-a-Thons. So the ones for Python precursor is at those. And Mark just did it also. So you're good to go.
Perfect. So we've talked about notebooks. So I'm going to show you how you can create one once you have created your workspace, as we've seen before. So all you have to do is go to the analysis section in your workspace. So remember, right? Dashboard, data, and then analysis. So if you click on analysis, all you have to do is click on start, this plus button here. And then you can see that you are presented with a choice. So you can choose whether you want to use Python. And in that case, you have to click on Jupyter, because I told you that these notebooks are called Jupyter notebooks. And or if you want to use R, for example. So I'm going to select Jupyter right now because we want to create a Python notebook. And then all you have to do is input the name of the notebook. So I'm just going to call it test, remove, something like that. And then, of course, you can select the language and you click on create analysis. And it's usually pretty easy. You will be presented with this screen, which is going to ask you to set up the virtual computer that you're going to use to run all of those computations. So you can think of it like a copy of the physical computer that you have at home, right? And you will be able to specify how powerful you want your machine to be. And you're free to change these settings at any time if your needs change. So you can leave the default settings if you're going to try this later today. Everything is fine. You can just, go to the bottom of the page and click on next or, create. But if you're curious, I mean, here, it allows you to actually personalize everything and select how much computing power you want, or, for example, how much disk space you want for this virtual computer. I'm not going to go over that, but I'm just going to tell you that you can click next. And by the way, let me show you, because this will come up later. You see this item that I'm highlighting right now. So it gives you an estimate of how much it will cost to run your analysis, right? And you can see that it's 6 cents per hour based on the current settings. I will tell you everything about billing and costs later. So if you click on next, okay, this is because I was using RStudio, but it's fine. You won't see this, but all you have to do is actually click on create. There will be a create button here, and your virtual computer will be created and you'll be good to go. So you see, it was so quick. So I'm going to do the steps again so that it's easier for you to visualize everything. Perfect. So you see, it was that easy. And of course, our test notebooks are going to appear at the end of the page here. Perfect. So we went over notebooks, and we're going to show you what notebooks look like in the next section. So I'm not going to do that now, but you'll see everything. And I'm going to skip to the datasets section to talk about data and how you can work with data on ScHARe. So are there any questions on notebooks? Let me ask that first. Okay, I guess we are good. So in terms of data, on ScHARe, you can work with two main categories of data, right? It can be data that you upload to your workspace. And this will be like your own personal project data, which is stored on your computer. And you can upload that data to your workspace and continue your work in the cloud. Or the second category is data that is already on the cloud, so already in the ScHARe data ecosystem. And we have three categories of data sets, which we call the Google-hosted public datasets, the ScHARE-hosted public datasets, and the ScHARE-hosted project datasets. So just to give you an idea of what's available, I'm going to go over these categories real quick. So the Google-hosted public datasets are the datasets that Debbie was mentioning before. So they are publicly accessible, federated datasets. They only contain de-identified data. And they are actually hosted by Google. They have a Google Cloud Public Dataset program. So they host these public datasets, and we make them accessible through ScHARe. And an example is the American Community Survey dataset. For the ScHARE-hosted public datasets, these are datasets that we as ScHARe host. So they're publicly accessible. Again, they're de-identified, and we host them. So an example is the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System dataset. And finally, a third category of datasets, just so you know that it exists, are the ScHARE-hosted project datasets. And these are either publicly accessible or controlled access datasets that come from funded program or project datasets. They come from, funded programs or projects at NIH or HHS. So they're used by NIH grantees or intramural investigators to comply with the NIH data sharing policy. So this is probably only relevant for those of you who are at NIH. That said, here are some examples of the datasets we host. So I start with the Google-hosted datasets. So you can see that examples include the American Community Survey dataset, or US Census data, and many other datasets that are relevant to the social determinants of health or population size, such as the Area Deprivation Index, for example, or point-in-time homelessness count. So there are many interesting datasets that you'll be able to access, and I show you how in a moment. These are the ScHARE-hosted datasets. And as I think I mentioned before, they are organized based on the CDC social determinants of health categories, which you can see on screen. So education access and quality, healthcare and quality, neighborhood and built environment, social and community context, and economic stability. And to those 5 categories, we did add 2 additional categories, so health behaviors and diseases and conditions, because we're going to host EHR data and clinical data in the near future. And I don't need to remind you what social determinants of health are, but of course they are the non-medical factors that influence health outcomes, so the conditions in which people are born, grow, work, and live that can have an impact on their health. So I'm going to give you for each category like a couple of examples of data sets that we have. So for education access and quality, for example, we have data on graduation rates, school proficiency, etc. So data sets include the data files from the US Department of Education, for example. For healthcare access and quality, it's data on health literacy, use of health IT, emergency room waiting times, access to quality care, etc. And an example would be the medical expenditure panel survey from AHRQ. So it's data on the cost and use of healthcare and health insurance coverage. For neighborhood and built environment, we have data on access to internet, access to safe water supplies, toxic pollutants, and environmental health risks, etc. And an example would be the environmental indicators from the CDC, from the National Environmental Public Health Tracking Network. So environmental indicators and health, exposure, and hazard data. Finally, for social and community context, we have data on crime rates or experiences of racism, discrimination, etc. An example being the hate crime statistics from the FBI. Economic stability, well, that's pretty easy, but it's data on unemployment, poverty, housing stability, and food insecurity and hunger. An example is the Food Access Research Atlas from the US Department of Agriculture. So food access indicators for low income and other census tracts. Finally, health behaviors, it's data on health-related practices that can affect health outcomes. So an example is BERFAS, which contains state-level data on health-related risk behaviors and chronic health conditions and use of preventive services. Finally, for the diseases and conditions category, we will have data in the near future on incidence and prevalence of specific diseases and health conditions. So, for example, data from the CDC on 124 chronic disease indicators that are important to public health practice, or data on organ sharing. And I want to remind you that in our analysis tab, so we have a notebook that lists all of the datasets that are available in the ScHARE datasets collection. I'm going to show you real quick. It's the first notebook that you can see listed here in the analysis section. So if you open it, you'll actually be able to access the full list of datasets that are currently within our space. And the same categorization was also preserved here. So it's going to be easy to locate what you're looking for. And going back to my presentation, of course, how you can access the available data from the data tab that I showed you, right? So let me show it to you again, live. So this is our workspace. If you click on the data tab, you're going to be brought to this page. And you can see that on the left, we have a list of categories which exactly match what I just told you, right? So, for example, I don't know, education access and quality. If you click on one of these categories, on the right, you will see links to all the data you can access and information on that data. So, for example, for this data set, so that's the name of the data set, and then you have information on the size, and I'm going to scroll right, the year the data refers to, and a direct link to the data, and then links to every helpful material. So, for example, data dictionaries, and then information on the file format, etc. So this is actually the section where you can access all the data from. And I'll show you how in a moment. Perfect. So that was an overview on the data. So before we go to the next section, we're going to get into some practical parts. So I'm going to show you how you can actually upload your data from your computer to your workspace, and then how you can work with all the categories of data that we host. And I have examples for each one of them. Before we do that, I wanted to take this chance to ask you if there are any questions, either on the notebooks before or on the data. And then we can move to the next section. Okay, let me see.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So is there any descriptions for the data that are listed?
Yes, of course. Of course, the description cannot be hosted in the data section. I'm going to show you. So it cannot be, hosted here. But if you go to the analysis section and you open our notebook, then in that notebook, as you can see, for every data set, so let's take this, for example, you have a description. Actually, let me open it. I will open it for you. I want to show you the full thing, because that was only a preview. This is what a notebook looks like, by the way. And you see, it's really easy also to navigate it, because you have a section on the left with the different sections, and you can just skip to the section you're interested in. And you can see that for every data set, for example, this one, ACS, you have the source listed, and then a description, and then a link to the actual data set where you will be able to find more information. So each one of them has this. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thanks.
Of course. Any more questions, Debbie? Any more questions for me? I'm trying to review the chat.
Yeah. So this is Mark again. So can we export the data to be analyzed on a different platform or workstations?
Yes, of course. So
to sign any agreement? There was another question. User agreement to use this data and publish?
Thank you. So the data sets that are currently on the platform are, just public data. So no data use agreements are required. In the future, in the near future, we will have also controlled access data sets, and then a data use agreement will be required. But for now, everything is publicly accessible. So you can download and reuse, any data set you find interesting.
And if there is a link to publication that have been used, that are using these data sets in the description, each time there is a publication, it is a relationship between the data sets and the publication. If we want to see a publication that has been submitted or accepted using the data set, can we see it on the Terra?
So not right now, but that's something we plan to add in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I just wanted to show you that you can actually click on any of these links if you want to actually download the data set on your computer. So from the data section, each one of these, you see points directly to the CSV file, for example, in this case. So you can download the data set from here.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Debbie, do you think we are good to go to the next section?
I just want to make a point back to what the question was earlier. These data sets don't have any personal information in them now. They're 243 clean data sets. We are in the process of adding data sets that have personal information. When we do that, for those data sets, you will have to request I'm going to give you the terminology for those of you that are new. You're going to have to request what they call a DUA, which stands for Data Use Agreement. Just because they're on the platform doesn't mean that the data is going to be compromised. So it's really important to understand that this will follow the same data use that any other system has. And that includes when we start putting project data in the data repository. And many of you on the call are probably going to be grantees that put your data on our repository. I just want you to know that it's also designed so that you can post some public data and you can keep other data private. And it will all be in your control. So sometimes there is a data use agreement that will need to be done when PII data is added to the system. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, Debbie. So we're going to go to the next section, and I'm going to show you how you can actually upload data from your computer to your workspace. So we will use Python, of course. Everything you will see today is actually in our notebooks. So we are actually going to use one of our notebooks to show you all the instructions that you need to be able to upload data from your computer to your workspace and work on it in the cloud. So you'll be able to refer to the notebook.
Just a minute, Luca, but also understand that there are R notebooks as well for those of you who use R. We just encourage you to do Python because that's what most people use in this world. And I took a course, and for those of you who are senior investigators, I took the course just so I can understand what people are talking about. It's not that I necessarily am going to do any coding, but I really encourage all of you to at least take a couple of courses so you know what people are talking about. Sorry, Luca, go on.
Oh, perfect. So we are focusing on the data you upload to your workspace. So what we're going to do to simulate the process, right? Meaning that you might have some data, some personal project data of your own on your computer, and you might want to upload it to your workspace to be able to create a notebook and work on it in the cloud. So to give you an example of that today, we will download a sample data set because, of course, I mean, I don't have any on my computer, and so I'm going to need one to show you how you can then upload it into a Terra workspace. And the data set we're going to use, and I mentioned this because there will be examples on how to access the data, how to plot it. So we're going to use the Minority Health Social Vulnerability Index data set. And it's an extension of the original Social Vulnerability Index data set by the CDC. And it is used to help plan support for communities in public health emergencies. So it combines the original 15 social factors with additional factors that were known to be associated with COVID-19 outcomes. So that's some information on the data set. And I also want to mention that this specific data set we are going to work with is a TSV file in terms of format. And this is kind of for advanced users, for the advanced users among you, but TSV is actually an abbreviation. It stands for tab separated values file. It's a file format that is commonly used to exchange data. And there are many other file formats, right? So there's CSV, Excel files, etc. And I left something here, a link here to some explanations on how you can use Python code to actually read every format. So this is for advanced users, but I wanted to mention that. Perfect. So let me actually show you how we can use our instructions to have you upload data that is on your computer to the workspace. Okay, perfect. So just for your reference, future reference, I want to show you that I had the notebook open, but it can be retrieved from here later on. So it's in the analysis section. And you can see that there are many, they are numbered. And the one we are using right now is this one, number 8. So how to upload, access, plot, and save data stored locally meaning on your computer using Python. So that's the data set that I have, the notebook that I have open right now. And as you can see, all the notebooks provide detailed instructions. So, it tells you about our use case, right? Because it's a tutorial, so it's going to provide you with information on, what you are trying to do, how much it will cost, some information on the data set that we will be using for this example. So basically all the things that I already told you. And next, section number 2 is about setting up the environment. So if you're going to use Python in a notebook, there are some commands that you have to run every time to prepare the notebook to run the analysis. And the good thing about this is that if you don't know where to begin, you don't have to go looking for anything, because you can actually reuse the code that is already in the notebook, even for future notebooks that you may want to create. So what we're going to do is we're going to install some libraries that are needed for Python to work. And the way that works, you can see that there are sections in the notebook that are about documentation, right? So this is an example. This is just text explaining what we're going to do. And there are sections of the notebook devoted to the actual commands that you have to run to be able to perform computations. So you can tell the difference, right? There are these cells that you can actually click on and press this button here. It's called run. And pressing that button will actually execute that command. So in this case, what we're trying to do is we're trying to install this tool, this library, which is needed for Python to work. All you have to do is actually click in the cell and click on run. And you can see that it's running in real time. So that's the output. So the system is actually installing all the things I need to be able to run the code. And it's going to give you a confirmation message, after which you can run the next one. So same thing, click in the cell and click on run. And again, don't worry about following my steps, but I want to show you what you will be able to do later. And the last thing here, we're going to import some other tools that are necessary for Python to work well. So pandas, for example, is the library that was mentioned before. And we are going to import that as well as other components that we need. So same thing, I click on the cell, click on run. Perfect. Great. So, and that's all we needed. Then the next step is going to be to obtain some information about the workspace that we need to be able to import the data. And again, you don't have to worry about knowing this. You can just replicate what's already on screen. So we will run this cell. And what this is doing is we are getting the Google Building Project name and the name of our workspace, and we are verifying that we have actually captured the information we need. This information is going to become helpful later in the process. So for now, just bear with me and know that this is necessary. So you see that we have obtained the information we needed. And the next step is going to be to actually load the data from your computer to the workspace and to the notebook. So as I said, we are going to use that TSV file that I mentioned before. And the first thing we want to do is downloading the file, assuming that it's not already on your computer. Sorry, I clicked on something. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to remove this so that it's easier. Perfect. So the first thing we're going to do is download that file. So I'm going to click on this link here. And of course, if you have data already on your computer, you don't need to do that. You can just upload what you have. So I'm going to open my download folder and locate that file. It's the TSV file that I was mentioned before. So now the next thing is going to be uploading that TSV file to our workspace. There are several ways to do that. And I'm going to leave it for you to analyze, like to see the first one, right? So you can do that using the Google Cloud Platform console. Everything is explained. There is an even easier way to do that, and we're going to use that. So you can upload data using the Terra user interface. So I would invite you to go to the dashboard, and from where you will be able to access this link, which is a link to the space, the storage space associated with your workspace. So that's where all the data currently in your workspace is contained. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'm going to go to the dashboard. I'm going to open this in a new tab to be able to get back to this later. Perfect. So as you can see, this is the dashboard. And if I click on Cloud Information here on the right, you can see that the storage space where that contains all the data in this workspace is listed here. And I can very conveniently click on Open Bucket in browser. If I do that, I'll be brought to this page from where I will be able to upload the data into my workspace. I can repeat these steps if necessary, of course. But so as you can see here, I have a list of all the data that is contained in my workspace. And what I can do is I can click on Upload Files. I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to select my dataset that I want to upload to my workspace. And then I'm going to click on Open. And you can see that, of course, I already had it here. So I'm going to just say Overwrite. because we already did many Think-a-Thons on this. So I will click on continue uploading here. And you can see that the system says upload started, and it's going to give me a confirmation, which you can now see on screen that the file has been successfully uploaded. And it's that easy. You can do that for all the datasets you need. And now I'm gonna go back to my notebook, and I will want to, once the dataset is in the workspace, I want to actually bring it into our notebook, because I want the virtual computer that is running all the analysis in this notebook to be able to see that file, that dataset that we want to work with. So to do that, I'm going to run these commands. So I'm going to get some variables that I need, some information that I need. So I'm going to run this cell. So again, I click on the cell and then I'll run. Perfect. So I have the information that I need. I was looking for the full file path, actually.
So I think what's important as Luca's going through these codes, there's a couple of comments in the chat. This code works for everything. All you have to do is change variable names or change file names, which makes it really easy for you. And the way that this is set up, also, if you look at where he is right now, the part that you can change is highlighted in red. So you can change file names, you can change variable names, and then the code works for everything. And but one of the things I hope he went through was that you do have to upload Jupyter notebooks before you ever try to do anything. So, but the language, this is what Python looks like. For those of you who've never seen it before, this is what it looks like. This is Python.
Okay, so can I maybe rephrase my question? It seems that the user has to set up the environment, but you have multiple users in the same group. So the question is, if each user have to set up the environment, or each time they log in. So in this case, they will have to run the setup.
So I think what you're asking is, if you have multiple users, even in your own workspace, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, they might be connected and log in at the same time or a different time. So
if that's the case, it's kind of like what Luca's doing now. Once he does it, then it's accessible to you all because you're in the same workspace. If it's a different workspace, they have to set it up differently.
But even if you log out, the workspace environment is saved, or you have to set it up each time.
Yes, that's correct. So even if I switch off my computer now and I get back to this in 2 hours, then I will have to run these steps again. And now, but it's going to be so easy. Like right now, the way I set up this, I wanted to provide you with like full explanations. So I had many cells running commands, but like, you can put all of these commands in one single cell and run them, in 2 seconds, the next time. Here they are divided because I wanted to provide explanations and,
So now, since you have multiple users, does each user have to do the setup?
Yes, but they will be able to find your instructions and just click on.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. It's just to know. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. And so you can see that what I'm doing here with this command is making the virtual computer that I'm using actually see the file. So I'm copying it into our notebook. So I'm going to do that, clicking on run, and I'm going to verify. You see, it says operation completed. And this is optional. It's just to check that it's actually in there. So it's gonna give me all the content of my storage space, and the file is in there, so we're fine. And now it's this simple. I mean, the tutorial is almost over, because all we have to do now is to use this function of pandas, which is that Python library that I mentioned before, to actually read that file and import it into a table. So it's really easy. As you can see, I'm using that function here. And again, you can modify this code and to accommodate your needs. And I'm going to run this. So what I'm doing is I'm getting all of the data. I'm loading it into a data frame, which is a table. And then I'm going to use this command here to show me the table head. So to take a look at the top of our table. So basically the first 5 rows of the table are displayed by default. And you can see that everything worked. So that's my data set, the first 5 rows of that data set. So it worked. We did access the data. And now we are able to perform any other computation that we want. Tepi, wanted to ask you something. We have code that show how to also analyze data and plot it. Do you think we should go over that, or we should go to the next section? I'm not sure about time. How we're doing.
It is 10 to 4. We probably have a little time to go over just
Okay.
for that, so people will know.
Okay, perfect. I'll do that. Okay, so what we want to do next as an example, and we'll keep this really simple, of course, there are so many advanced things that you can do, but this is for beginners. So we're going to retrieve some data, right? So we're going to read a subset of columns and rows from that table. And the next step is going to be to plot it. Just as an example of what you can do. So this cell here uses SQL, which all of you are familiar with, structured query language, of course, which is the standard language for database creation and manipulation. So we're going to use these 2 commands to select a subset of parameters from the dataset. So what I'm going to select is the state abbreviation, right? And this variable here, which is the average, the percentage of persons below poverty level for each state. So in this example, we are interested in understanding how the 50 US states compare in terms of average percentage of persons below poverty level. So I need those 2 variables to do that, the state name and the poverty level. So this command and the next one they're gonna allow me to do exactly that. So to retrieve the variable, filtering the data. So I'm gonna select these 2, and I'm also gonna group the values by state abbreviation. And the powerful thing is that in the same command, I can also calculate the average percentage of persons below poverty level for that state. So I'm gonna run these commands. And you can see that that table, which was, very long before, now has only 51 entries. So just 1 for each state. And there is the average poverty level for that state as a second column here. So I'm going to use this command here now to compute and display summary statistics, right, for the table. Actually, these are the summary statistics, and then I'm going to show you also what the table looks like using the same command that we used before. So the summary statistics are displayed here, and I can use the same command that I used before to get the head of the table. So to display the first 5 rows of the data frame. I'm going to run that. And as you can see, if you compare the table that I had before, which looked like this, with the table that I have now, you can see that we filtered the data and we calculated the average poverty level for each state. So now the data is ready to be plotted. to do that, we're going to use other two Python libraries. So plot9 and ggplot2. And these are libraries that allow you to actually plot the data. Again, you can modify these commands really easily. So all you have to do is actually set a default plot size if you want. And you can do that using this command here, where you specify the size of the plot. And then with one single command, you can plot the data. And you can see that when you try this, you'll be able to change the variable names here, the ones in red here, depending on your needs. But I'm gonna run the command. And here it is. A plot has been created. So we have, a plot of the data we were interested in plotting. And I'm just going to mention now, since I always get many questions about how to save the data. So the analysis results are always saved. Whenever you leave the notebook, you won't lose your data. And so it's auto-saved. And if you want to manually save the data, you can also do that by pressing this button here. So you can save and create a checkpoint. Perfect. So that I hope this demonstration was helpful. And do we have any questions before I get to how to access plot and save the Google hosted data?
Hello? Hello?
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. Do I need to set up my own Python environment so I can install some of the packages like libraries, Python libraries before I use them, before I use Jupyter Notebook?
Thank you. No, that's a great question. Actually, all you have to do is actually reuse what we have right now. So, create cells like the ones we have.
Oh, okay.
If you want to do something similar to what we're doing today, or go over these examples again, you just have to use the same
just use pip install. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Got it.
If you need
I don't think that.
Of course, and if you need to use something more specific to your needs or something, you can just add a line here.
Okay.
Import and the name of your library.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So it's really simple. No worries. You're welcome. Okay, so should I go to the next one? We do that. I want to show you how you can work with Google hosted data. And before I show you the example, which of course is going to be using Python again, but we also have the R version for you to look at. I just want to mention what are the Google Cloud public datasets. So they are datasets that Google hosts, right? So Google pays for the storage and public access of these datasets, and users only pay for the queries that they perform on the data. And we will pay for that today. So if you're going to use the free bidding project that we shared with you, you won't pay anything. And the Google public datasets are available for access on Terra by using BigQuery. So BigQuery is kind of the Google Cloud solution for structured data to access and retrieve certain sections of the data using queries. And it's really easy to use. It works with really large amounts of data, and it's really fast. So you'll see. And many datasets are stored in BigQuery. I showed you already which ones. And the dataset that we are going to use is this one, the area deprivation index. So it shows where areas of deprivation and affluence exist within a community. So it's calculated with 17 indicators from ACS, from the US Census American Community Survey. And so these indicators encompass income, education, employment, and housing conditions at the census block level. And the ADI, which is the area deprivation index, is reported as a percentile that is 0 to 100%, with 50% indicating a middle of the nation percentile. So basically, a low ADI score indicates affluence, a high ADI score indicates deprivation, which of course is linked to health outcomes, to worse health outcomes. So I'm gonna go back to my browser now to show you how you can work with Google hosted data. So here is the notebook that we created to show you that. And once again, if you go to the analysis section, it's going to be there for you to review again later today. So it's number 9, how to upload, access, and plot. No, I'm sorry, not I'm sorry, wrong page. Okay, so it's number 6, how to access, plot, and save data from public BigQuery datasets using Python. Perfect. Great. So we already saw what BigQuery is. I told you about the data set that we're going to use. And you can see that we are going to have to run those commands again, because we changed notebooks. So this answers also your question markedly. So we're going to run the same commands very easily. So we just click on the cell and click run. Then again for this cell here. And then you see how quick it is? It's really fast. And same thing for the last one. Could have put together all of these in one cell, actually, but I wanted to provide some explanations, which you will be able to review with more time. And we are done. So the environment is.
Excuse me, Luca. And one of the things that we can't, what we can do is maybe at the bottom of this, Luca, or at the very top, put them all together so that people can just cut and paste the whole thing. Now we've kind of gone through it. They can do it separately just to make it easier for people.
Of course. We will do that. And so we are doing the same thing actually here. So we are going to retrieve some filtered data, so a subset of data from that data set. So for this example, we are interested in understanding how the 50 US states compare in terms of average ADI percentile values. So I already told you what that means, and we can do this. We can retrieve filtered data and plot it in 2 different ways. So we can actually use SQL, for example. So we're going to run these cells here. And what we are doing is we are running a query which selects a subset of parameters from the data set. So we are selecting the state, the year, and the mean ADI value. Okay, so we already did that. So you can see that we are using SQL to select those variables. We are telling the virtual computer what to select. So these variables, and from where, and this is the name of the data set that we want to access. And should you want to access a different data set hosted on BigQuery, all you have to do is change this data set name to the one you're interested in. And of course, they're all listed, so it's pretty easy. And then we are also grouping the data, as you can see, and ordering it, all with the same command. So now that we've done that, we can display information about the table as we did before. So here is some information from the table. So it now contains 51, of course, lines. And some more information on the table can be obtained running this command. And finally, we can display the first 5 rows of the table. So the table head using this command. Perfect. So you can see that we have a table that is ready to be worked with. And the next step would be to plot the data. So we're using plotline again. So very similar to what we did before. So you can see that really once you learn once, it's really easy to replicate the steps, for different use cases. So we're going to set a default plot size, and then we're going to plot the data using this command, which is going to select the variables that we want to plot, state and mean ADI, and it's also going to assign names to the axis and a title to the graph, all in one single command. So I'm going to click on run. And there it is. We have our plot. So the mean ADI values on the y-axis and the US states on the x-axis. And these can be personalized and customized in every possible way. We're sticking to the simple things. Perfect. And then saving data, I told you, so it's automatically saved. So we are done. So it's really easy. The only part that actually changed, I mean, we set up the environment, right? The same way as we did before. So the only part that changed is actually how we didn't, of course, need to upload the data because it's online, it's on the cloud already. So we only needed to access it. And it's really easy for you to access all of the other datasets by changing this line. And that's it. And then you can just display the table and plot it. So really easy. Are there any questions on this before I get to the ScHARE-hosted datasets?
I have a question.
Mhm.
I was wondering, how do you account for missing values or not available, not unknown, because they're pretty common in many surveys.
I know.
That's part of what each of the users have to do. And a lot of that depends upon what your study is trying to do. So that's not necessarily a feature of selecting and downloading data sets, but it is what we're going to talk about in November. Because it is the missing values create biases in data. And also low values. So oftentimes there's very little to no Native American data. So they create biases, which is, like I said, we'll cover in the November Think-a-Thon.
Mhm. And of course you can, oh, I'm sorry, Debbie, sorry.
No, that's great. No, thanks.
And of course you can do that within the notebooks, of course. We're just not showing that because it would be complicated, but you can do that here, of course. And I will go back to the ScHARE-hosted data. I want to show you how to work with that too. It's the last category that we're going to show today. So we're focusing on this one, the data we host. And as an example, we're going to use BRFAS, which is the nation's premier system of health-related telephone service that collect state-level data about US residents, right, regarding health behaviors, chronic health conditions, and use of preventive services. And it's data that is used to, establish and track state and local health objectives, plan health programs, implement interventions, and monitor public health trends. So once again, you'll be able to find all of this online. So I'm going to show you where. It's right here. Number 7, how to access, plot, and save data from ScHARE-hosted datasets using Python. So I'm going to open it. You can see that it's pretty quick once you set up the environment. It takes seconds. And then we have our usual overview here. I told you about the data set. Same lines to set up the environment. And actually this time they're all together that is you requested. So one single command, one single cell that I have to run. I just did that. So that's taken care of. And you now have to set some environment variables, like the first time. So it's information that we need in terms of, for example, the name of the workspace, the exact location of the data, and we're going to get the Google Building project name and workspace name, and we'll verify that we have captured that information. So I'm going to click in the cell and click run, and it's done. And now what we're going to do next is we have to load that data into our virtual computer, right? So similar to what we did before. So the first thing we have to do is to locate the data set in the ScHARE workspace, right? And we will need to copy its address in order to be able to import it into this notebook. So the way you can locate the file, we're going to go to the data section of the ScHARE workspace that you saw before. We're going to look for the specific data set we want to work with, which is the 2021 version of BERFAS. And we're going to right-click on the name of the data set, and we're going to copy the address the link points to. So I'm going to show you all of this in a moment. So let's go to the data section. And BERFAS is among the health behaviors data sets. So I can now scroll down here until I reach the 2021 version. Okay. I need information on the year. Okay, here it is. Okay, here it is. So what I need to do now is simply to right-click here and select copy link. There is even a button here that makes this process easier. I can just click on this and it will copy the address to the clipboard. And the same applies to any other data set you might want to use. You just do the same thing for the data set you're interested in. So I'm going to go back to my notebook. So this is the link that I copied actually. And all we have to do now is to to load the data set into a data frame in our notebook. So we're going to use pandas again to create that table. And this command will allow you to create. So you can see that it's really easy. To create the table, you just have to use the file location that we just copied and replace it. Replace this portion in red with the location if you're trying to use a different data set. And with just this command, we're going to access the data set and create the table. So I'm going to run it. And now we're going to display the header table as we did before. So I'm going to run this cell. It's going to take some time to run, and then it's going to display the table head. Here it is. So those are the first 5 rows of the BERFAS dataset. And again, if you want to work with a different dataset, all you have to do is to go to the data section, copy the address for that dataset, and replace this portion in red with that link, that path to the dataset you're interested in. And then you can reuse the same commands, almost the same commands, changing the name of the dataset to display the table head. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to retrieve filter data and plot it as we did before. So we are interested for the purpose of this example in understanding how US states compare in terms of adverse childhood experiences. So with particular reference to living with a problem drinker or an alcoholic, or living with anyone who used illegal drugs or abused prescriptions, or living with anyone who served time in prison or jail. So there are 3 variable names that we are interested in filtering. And they are ace drink, ace drugs, and ace prison. So we're going to prep the data. Actually, we're going to skip this. We don't have much time for that. So we're going to retrieve and clean the data. Okay, and then we're going to display the table head. As you can see, same thing, right? We're displaying just the variables we're interested in. And we can get some information on the table running these commands. And Debbie, with your permission, I would skip all this part because it's about modifying. It's actually answering your question. sorry, I can't remember your name, but you had a question about how to clean data, but I probably skip this.
We don't need to go into that detail. I just wanted you to show them where it was.
Yeah.
So they can go there and cut and paste and realize they can still use Python just by changing variable names or file names. So there's no need to get into the details.
Okay, perfect. And I wanted to keep some time to go over billing because that's important, and the data explorer maybe. So
yes, go on.
So I'm just gonna say that, in the same way, we're gonna retrieve those variables, right? As I showed you here, we are grouping the values by state, and with the same command, we are also calculating the average percentage of, persons having experienced each condition, each of the 3 conditions that I mentioned before. So with this command, we are achieving all of that. And running this cell, we are creating a reduced table that just has the information we are interested in. And once we have that table, we can just click here and have information on that table. So count, mean, standard deviation, etc. And we can then display the entire table here by using this command. And the final step is to plot the data using the plot function. So we can do that actually for each of the 3 conditions. So we're going to do that for the average percentage of US children living with a problem drinker. So we're going to use this function. And it's as easy as running this single command to plot it. Same thing for the average percentage of US children living with anyone who used illegal drugs or abused prescriptions. We're just going to change the name of the variable here. And lastly, with the average percentage of US children living with anyone who served time in prison, this is the command we have to run, and we just changed the name of the variable here. Perfect. So hopefully this gave you an idea of how to access the different categories of data. So uploading data is easy. The Google Query data is really easily accessible just by copying and pasting the name of the data set into our code. And for the ScHARE-hosted datasets, all you have to do is to go to this page, look up the dataset you're interested in, copying its address and pasting that into our notebook, and you will be able to run the tutorials. So hopefully this gave you a good overview. Are there any questions before I show you something else?
Nope, I've answered all the questions. You can go on, Luca. Okay,
perfect. Then I wanted to go over billing and also to show you, if we have time, maybe I'll go over billing first. Debbie, what do you say? I wanted to show them the data explorer that we developed, but I'm not sure if we have enough time. Okay, I'll go. Debbie, what do you recommend? Data explorer or billing?
I was going to say, let's go over billing a little bit.
Okay.
And then end with the explorer.
Okay, perfect. That's what I thought. Great. So I wanted to give you some information on how you can set up billing in your ScHARe accounts, in your Terra accounts. So you'll be able to do everything for free today. But then once you lose access to that free billing project we gave you access to, there will be some cloud costs of working on Terra, for working on Terra. So there are 3 main reasons why you may incur charges. So there are the virtual machine compute costs. So the virtual computer that you're using to perform the analysis actually has costs to run those computations. And the good thing is that Terra allows you to commit. So if you need a high performance machine, you have the option to select those high performance features. If you only need the virtual computer to be able to perform basic analysis, you can do that, and your costs will be minimal.
Yeah, I just want to explain the difference between that. So for most of us that are doing more of the behavioral, social science, health disparities kinds of research, you don't need the high performance one. You tend the big genomic data sets that are, takes like 4 days to run an analysis. They use more of the high cost one. So select the low cost one first and make sure it probably will meet your needs. And it's actually pretty cheap.
Yes, exactly. So that's one category of costs. The second category of costs is storage costs. So any data that you host in your workspace is going to incur some costs. And the third category is if you need to move that data between different storage locations. This is for advanced users, but that's also when you will be charged. So mostly for average users, it's going to be about storing data and about virtual computing charges.
We store hundreds of data sets on the shared data system, and it doesn't cost us triple digits.
Right.
A month. It's very cheap.
It's really cheap. And the advantage of this is also that, for example, if we store the data, you can just access it without having to pay for storing that data. You can just use it to perform any analysis you need without paying to store it. So that's why we are doing this also. Perfect. So how will you be charged for these costs? So Terra runs on Google Cloud Platform. So all Terra costs are actually Google fees, and you're not going to be charged twice. So by Google and by Terra, you're only going to be charged by Google directly. So the way this works is that you have to configure a billing account with Google, and then you have to let Terra know to link, your Terra account to that Google account. So it's easier done than said, I would say. So what you have to do, yes, I told you about this, right? So you won't incur any costs today. And then after today, if you want to run those tutorials and notebooks, all you have to do is you have to set up your own billing, following the instructions that I will provide in a minute. And then you just have to copy any of your workspace to your own billing or just create new ones with that. So it's pretty easy. And by the way, all of you can actually get $300 in free Google Cloud credits. So if you have never used Google Cloud before, you're eligible for those $300 in free Google Cloud credits. And there are some conditions, but I'm sure that almost all of you would meet them. They're listed here. It's basically about not having previously signed up for the free trial. And what can you do with your credits in Terra? You can do anything. For the free credits, you're limited to 4 workspaces at a time. And they will be available to you for 3 months or until you use them up. And once you use them up, you will be told that you have run out of credits, and you will not just be charged for any extra costs. You'll have the chance to opt out. And I also want to give you an example for the educators among us. So we get this question all the time. So educators who want to work with their students and are wondering how much a collaborative project would cost. And we had an analysis done, and we estimated that it's going to cost about anywhere from $2 to $10 per analysis per student. And ways that you can set up billing, billing can be set up in 2 ways. So you could either, as the teacher, use the teacher or your institution, set up a billing account and then share it with your students. So allow each student to use the institution's billing account or the teacher's billing account. Or another way to do this is each student can set up their own billing account, and then they would be eligible for the $300 in free Google Cloud credits. So that way, it's probably going to be almost free. And so you have these 2 ways. I just mentioned this for the educators among us. And now I want to show you how you can actually set up binning. So there are 3 easy steps. So the first one is about signing into the Google Cloud Console and set up a Google Cloud Binning account. I'm just going to go over these steps, and the detailed instructions are going to be in the Terra page listed below and on the next 3 slides, which contain detailed steps. But for now, for the purpose of today's presentation, all you need to know is that you have to go to the Google Cloud Console first, set up a Google Cloud Binning account, and then on that page, link your Google Cloud Billing account and your Terra account so that they can communicate. And then the last thing you need to do in your Terra Billing page, you have to create a Terra Billing project and associate it to the Google account. That's all. So it's 3 easy steps. And here are the detailed instructions for each step. So step 1, setting up a Google Cloud Billing account. Step 2, linking the Google Cloud Billing account to Terra. And then step 3, creating a Terra Billing project. And I also want to mention how you can understand better and
Look, we have like 5 minutes left, so we need to go over this quickly.
Of course. I wanted to mention just how you can understand and monitor costs. There are many ways. So you can estimate costs, estimating analysis costs in that when you create the virtual computer, right? I showed you before. So you can get an idea of how much the analysis will cost. And for storage costs, there is information in your dashboard that tells you the expected cost per month to store the data in your workspace based on the actual amount of data you have. So you can go there and get a better idea of how much this would cost. And then for the data moving costs, whenever you want to move data, the system is going to tell you how much it will cost. So you'll get an idea beforehand. And I also wanted to mention that you can check actual costs in the Google Cloud Platform Console. So you can see the link on the right, and that's going to give you like exact information on how much you're paying. And you can also reduce costs in several ways. And the guides that I put in there are probably for advanced users, but they're really good. And they really tell you how you can save on workflow costs, cloud environment costs, and storage costs. There are many ways, and I would invite you to review them if you're interested in saving some money while working on the cloud. And Debbie, do you think we have time?
Yeah, we can just, we can kind of highlight the Burfus tool because I think it's an important resource. But I just want to add that even though, one of the things that we did with this ScHARe platform is to set this up so that of all the cloud computing, this is the cheapest way for you to do cloud computing. So we have code for you. We're hosting the data sets, so you don't have to do that. And we're just, everything that we did, we tried to make this as affordable as possible. And I can tell you that even as the amount of data sets that we host and the number of people we serve every month, the cost is minimal. So like minimal meaning under $100. So most of the time it's like in double digits. So especially doing many of the things that projects do, your cost is going to be pretty low. So I wanted Luca to highlight this because this is the kind of tools that we're going to be using for some of you that don't necessarily want to use large data, but if with tools like this on Burfus, you can actually still get information out in a usable way. So we're just going to do this real quickly, just kind of a highlight, Luca, and then we're going to end.
Of course. So I'm not sure we'll have time to actually demonstrate the tool because it's going to take a little while, you see, to create the cloud environment because we're switching to an R application. So it takes some time, but I'm going to tell you about the tool for sure. And then if we have time, I'm also going to demonstrate it. So this is just an example of how you can leverage the resources offered by Terra and ScHARe to build things like data explorers for any data set you're interested in or, for your analysis. So this is a screenshot of the actual product. So we created this using Shiny, and Shiny is a package or a tool for R. You can use it to develop interactive web applications for data exploration and visualization without any previous experience. So it's really easy to use it. And the application can be shared with your collaborators, for example, as code or containers. And they can also be run on servers or local machines as dashboards, for example. So you can, this is more for advanced users, I realize that, but it's really powerful. And these applications can be used to really take interactive data visualization to the next level. And Terra supports this, so you can build R Shiny apps within Terra and launch them using the RStudio environment that Terra makes available. And this is a screenshot of the actual tool that we developed. So it gathers data from the Burfast dataset, and it pre-processes it, and it allows you to visualize it, selecting the states and territories you're interested in seeing data for, and then the measure you're interested in comparing those states for. So as you can see, this is an example of one of the plots. It was like household income, and we were comparing Arizona, Colorado, and Maryland, for example. And you can see the ranges on the right. And all of this was done using Shiny and R within Terra. So you can do many similar things.
So Luca, to wrap this up, I'm going to have Luca go ahead and link onto it. For those of you who would like to see the live demo, you can stay, of course, but it is now 4:30, so we have to end the call officially. And what Mark is going to do is then put in the Slido poll. We ask you to do an evaluation of the session so that we can improve how we present the information. So Mark, if you'll do the Slido poll for the evaluation, the close. And for those of you who want to stay on, I'm going to have Luca go ahead and link into the Burfast tool just so that you can see it. But
the poll is open. It sounds like you want Luca to keep sharing, so I'm not going to take over screen share, but the poll is open. So participants, please respond to the Slido poll.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay, Mark. Please take over.
yeah, you can take it, Mark, and then we'll come back to you. So this is fill out the Slido evaluation final poll. We're going to leave the poll open for maybe 5-10 minutes, and so even though it goes off of the screen, Luca's going to bring up the Burfast Shiny tool for you to give you an example. But please complete the survey, even if you don't see it on the screen. On our screen, you can see it on your Slido account. Okay.
The direct link is in the chat, or go to slido.com, use code review, or use this QR code. Same as the earlier polls.
Elizabeth put the where it says Sidem and Elizabeth, she put the link in. So you just click that and fill out the survey, please. And Luca, if it's uploaded yet, you can take it back.
Thank you, Debbie. It's taking some time. Yeah, we'll let you know when it's ready.
Even though you can create these tools for yourself, we're going to have some of these tools as resources on the ScHARe platform so that you can also go there and easily use them without having to create things like this on your own. But I hope that some of you can stay just to see it, because you'll get a a different perspective of how to use the data in some of these data sets. And, you know, the other part that we're promoting with the use of ScHARE is that we can aggregate data sets. And when we aggregate data sets, it's how we get ready to do AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning types of data analysis. And that's what we're prepping you all for.
Still loading.
If you want to save today's presentation, Elizabeth put in the chat how to do that. And but while we're waiting for it to upload, are there any questions?
Hi, I have a question. I actually joined the meeting, I think maybe half a year ago, and then I used my own Google email to create the account. And then I forgot. I didn't do anything after that. And then now I check my previous Google, my personal Google account. Yeah, I can log into this the Terra, and also can see everything that's showed in the class, the meeting. But I try to use my my Google email to sign up the account, and everything changed. Like I couldn't see the dashboard or anything. Like it just nothing I can see. It just takes a few days to go through, like to get the authorization to my work Gmail.
So the reason why that happens is that we need to give you access for you to be able to see the workspace.
Oh, okay, got it.
So if you want to, if for any reason you want to use like your work address for a different Gmail address, you can just contact me at any time, and I will just give you access with the new one. But
okay,
so
that's
it's
great.
normal. It's how it works.
Okay, I remember. Yeah, I remember the first time I signed up. I had the same issue, and then now I check, it's all fresh. Yeah, I can see everything now.
So I'm glad you asked that question, because actually it was part of the thing that was in the chat about can people access all cloud platforms?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is yes, anyone can access cloud platforms when the owner of the platform grants you permission.
Okay.
So the owner of the platform has to give you permission to come into it. It's part of the security piece to all of this. And that will be the same thing when you set up your own workspace.
Yeah.
It's totally private. Unless you allow someone in, no one can get in.
Oh, okay.
So
that's great. Yeah.
Sometimes there's this misnomer that the cloud isn't safe, but it is totally safe. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that just proved our point that you can't see anything unless you're granted permission.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah, good to know that.
Thank you for helping us out.
I will not say that the cloud is not safe. Nothing is safe.
It's as safe as most anything can be. Okay. Yes, nothing in life is safe. Totally.
I wanted to show you that it's just taking some time to load. So, because we are switching from Python to are. And so probably there are many of us connected now, and it's taking some time. Just bear with me. Are there any other questions that I can help answer while we wait for this? Like on the content that we covered. Sections of the workspaces, dashboard data analysis, our notebooks, the data sets we have. Maybe anything you would like to add?
No, just get a few more hamsters in that processing. So they can go a little bit faster.
I will try to log out and log in again to see if there is some.
Get some new hamsters going there.
Let me do that. I'll actually log out and log in. Just solve the issue.
You know, one of the things that, while Luca's doing that, one of the things that we hope, and we've done a few special think-a-thons for educators. One of the reasons that we developed this tool was we know that not every academic institution, especially community colleges, can afford to build platforms like this. It takes millions of dollars to do this. And so we built this platform for low resource institutions to not have to build their own platform, but to be able to use this both as a teaching tool and as a place for you to store your own research data. So we've also been working with different institutions to try to help them figure out different ways to actually get this incorporated. I've spoken to several deans at universities and to talk about how instructors can set up billing accounts so that students can access a particular workspace. Luca also gave a suggestion that each student set up their own account in your workspace, because then they get $300 free credits. And so if any of you are interested in some of the discussions we've had so that you can use this as a teaching tool as well and use it in, because one of the things that we're really trying to do also is to promote coursework in data science at institutions like community colleges or low resource academic institutions, so that they can also join in on data science efforts. Data science should not just be for the rich. We all can do this.
But we can also incorporate the cost into a proposal, NSF or NIH proposal, so we can support schools.
Yeah, actually, there's several awards at NIH now that actually give like ODSS, NIGMS, NHGRI, they all give supplement and proposals for using a cloud environment to do studies. So you can look at the ODSS webpage or look at our funding opportunities webpage and get a sense of when those are coming out so that you can easily apply.
It's still loading. There's probably some. Okay, I think I've got it working. So let me share my screen with you. I'm going to show you what the Burfast demo looks like. It's a data explorer that we built using ShINy, as I told you. So let me show you how you can get to that. So from our shared workspace, remember there are different sections: dashboard, data, analysis. So all you have to do is click on the analysis section. And once you do that, you have to scroll down until you find the Burfast app. So as you can see, it's based on R, so RStudio instead of Python. And all you have to do is click on it. When you do that, and you click on the Open button, you will be presented with this screen, which is the RStudio version that ScHARE and Terra support. So this is our app built using ShINy, as I told you. And all you have to do is click on Run App, or Reload App in this case, because I had already opened. And you will be presented, after the script runs in this box, you will be presented with this screen, which is our data explorer. So as you can see, we put together a data visualizer that allows you to select certain variables within the Burfast dataset, the 2021 version of the Burfast dataset. And it allows you to quickly visualize some of those variables and even compare different states in the US for those variables. So we have a scroll down list here where you can select the states. And we have Maryland selected, and you can add, for example, Massachusetts, or let's add Illinois. And you can see that all you have to do is to select a measure. So in this case, we picked household income, and you can see that it's pretty easy to compare data for the different states in this way. And you can also select different variables. So, for example, race. And as you can see, the screen updates and it shows you the data for those variables within those states. So this was pretty easy to build. And as a reminder, it was built using ShINy, which is a package built for R. And you can use it to develop interactive web applications for data exploration and visualization, even without any previous experience. So it's really, really easy to use. Those applications can be shared with your collaborators, and they can even be run as standalone web pages or dashboards if you're interested in doing that. So it's a really powerful tool, and it's just an example of all the possibilities that ScHARE will offer to you as data scientists and users. So thank you so much. I hope you liked this data explorer. If you have any additional suggestions in terms of features that you would like to see added, or features that you would find helpful to have for such a data visualizer, just contact us and let us know. And now, Debbie, will turn it over to you again so that you can conclude our presentation.
Thank you all for joining us. I hope you come back for the next 3, because we're really trying to prepare all of us to start doing AI and using big data. Even if you use statistics, these are the kinds of things that we need to pay attention to, because we're going to be the group that pays attention to the biases. And So we need to get prepared in order to participate in further AI developments. So thank you all for participating. And some of you that have stayed with us for the last several months, I applaud you. I hope this has been useful. And I know from the polls that we've taken that the bars have moved a little bit to the right, which means some of you have stayed with us and now you're saying that you've learned something. So that's always a good thing. And I wish you well, and we will see you next month. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you so much.